Be informed. Be guided. Be inspired. As Hector Macalalag Leadership Channel proudly presents review sessions for Principals Swain and DMT.
Isang mapagpalang araw sa inyong lahat. A blessed day to all of you. How's your reading in preparation for the incoming Principals Test or the National Qualifying Examination for School Heads? I hope all of you are doing your part as you read the different legal basis and support in order to function well as a school head. And after discussing the Philippine Professional Standards for School Heads, the domains 1 to 4 and the introductions, in fact, I have released 6 videos, and this is the 7th, which is also very crucial in the life of the school head. Dahil dito nagsimula ang talagang role ng school heads. And isa ito sa mga major reforms in the Department of Education. This is the implementing rules and regulations of Republic Act 9155 or the Basic Education Act of 2001. The principal proponent of this is the late Senator Tessie Aquino Oreta. As early as 1999, she already lobbied for this. At sa act na ito ay nawalan din ng administrative function ang ating mga public schools district supervisors, bagkos ang administrative and instructional supervision ay naibigay sa school head at ang PSDS ay instructional supervision na lang. Maliban na lang kung bigyan siya ng additional designation ng schools division superintendent. Thus, please bear with this video dahil isa yata ito sa pinakataas kong nagawa kasi i-discuss ko lahat ng mga definition of terms at yung mga background ng RA 9155 as well as the roles and functions and responsibilities, yung aura, authority, responsibility, and accountability of a school head. I-discuss ko yan. I will skip the discussion on the roles of the secretary, the regional directors, and the schools division superintendent because this video is for the school heads. That's why I would like you to bear with me as I discuss the implementing rules and regulations of Republic Act 9155. A blessed day to all of you. Isang mapagpalang araw sa inyong lahat. As promised, here is my segment about the National Qualifying Examination for School Heads or otherwise known as the Principals Test 2021. And this is the implementing rules and regulations of RA 9155. So ito po ang inyong lingkod, Hector Macalalag. And I hope that you will bear with me as we discuss the IRR of RA 9155. Itong RA 9155 plays a vital role in the life of a school head. Although may mga discussion dito about the secretary, the functions of secretary, the functions of a regional director, as well as the schools division superintendent, we will focus our discussion on the roles of the school head. But we will discuss some other provisions of this Republic Act 9155. So this is the RA 9155. That this is the Governance of Basic Education Act of 2001. So as early as 2001, itong mga nararamdaman nating mga pagbabago ngayon ay nagsimula na noon pang 2001. That's why some of the terms here are still existing today because it all started with this provision of Republic Act 9155.
And some of the terms also here are being replaced with that of Republic Act 10533. Iyon yung K-12 law. So, importante talaga as you take the principal's test, nasa ulo mo itong Republic Act 9155. Take note na dito tayo nag-focus sa implementing rules and regulations because this is the implementing guidelines on how to implement this Republic Act 9155. So, kung magkakaroon ng mga interpretations, dito talaga tayo sa IRR. So, let us start with the mandate of the Department of Education. It is said here that the Department of Education shall protect and promote the right of all citizens to quality basic education and shall take appropriate steps to make such education accessible to all. The Department of Education shall establish, maintain, and support a complete, adequate, and integrated system of basic education relevant to the needs of the people and society. So, ang mandate ng Department of Education ay kailangan i-uphold ang right ng lahat ng mga mamamayan to have that basic education. And that basic education should be relevant to the needs of the people. Kasi naman, from time to time, nagbabago talaga yung mga needs ng education. Iba yung pamamaraan noon at iba yung mga needs at pamamaraan ngayon. We are adjusting through the needs of times. So, hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na yung education ay magiging stagnant. So, kaya nga naman ngayon, marami ng mga pagbabagong naganap sa ating department. So, that's why education must be relevant to the needs of the people. Okay, sa section 1.2 sa principles, the implementation of the Act and the application of these rules shall be guided by the following principles. The Department of Education must serve the students and the teachers as its primary constituents. So, ang care ay dapat nandun talaga sa mga learners at saka sa mga teachers, no? At hindi naman tayo pinapabayaan ng Department of Education. Although may mga weaknesses ang ating department, but lahat ng mga programa ay nakatuon talaga sa ating mga learners at sa ating mga teachers, no? So, sa pangalawang principle, the principals, school administrators, and teacher in charge, yung teacher in charge ay talagang referred to as school heads, must exercise instructional leadership and sound administrative management of the school. So, kailangan you must exercise leadership and sound, no? May word na sound administrative management. So, nasa iyo ang instructional and administrative power as a school head in a certain school. So, that is a big responsibility. Kaya kailangan ma-realize ng lahat ng school head na dapat lahat ng decision mo ay sound, no? And then, pangatlong principle ay, the school is the heart of the formal education system and the seat of learning. So, siya talaga ang heart of a formal education system. So, to speak, we have to implement all the programs sa formal education system. Pang-apat, the parents and the community shall be encouraged for active involvement in the education of the child. The participation, coordination between and among the schools and local school boards and the Parents-Teachers Association must be maximized. So, sa batas na ito, dapat talaga yung coordination ng mga parents, local school boards, no, yung ating mga LGU, saka yung PTA, talagang dapat maximize silang lahat. So, dapat education is everybody's business. Hindi lang talaga ito pang DepEd lang na responsibility. It is everybody's concern. So, hindi pwedeng pabayaan ang DepEd. Nasa batas po yan. So, hindi pwedeng sabihin ng LGU na Sa inyo lang yan. Hindi pwedeng sabihin ng parents na sa inyo lang yan. Responsibility. This is a coordination effort between the school, the LGU, and the PTA. And it is stated there that it must be maximized. The fifth principle is volunteerism from all other sectors shall be emphasized and encouraged to ensure sustainable growth and development in education. So it takes a village to educate a child. So this is everybody's business. So the purpose and objectives of this Republic Act 9155 are provided. The first one is to provide a framework for the governance of basic education, which shall set the general directions for educational policies and standards and establish authority, accountability, and responsibility for achieving higher learning outcomes. So, this framework or this act will provide a framework of Governance of Basic Education Act. At dito rin nakasaad yung aura ng mga school officials. Yung authority, accountability, and responsibility para ma-achieve ang higher learning outcomes. The second one is to define the roles and responsibilities of and to provide resources to the regions, schools division, and schools which shall implement the educational programs, projects, and services in communities they serve. So, dapat may mga definition of roles talaga as we implement this. So, that's why this act is very, very important. And to make schools and learning centers the most important vehicle for the teaching and learning of national values and for developing Filipino learners, the love of country and pride in its rich heritage. So of course, no? So itong schools ay dapat at itong learning centers ay dapat maging vehicle para ma-teach yung national values and pride in its rich heritage. And to ensure that schools and learning centers receive the kind of focused attention they deserve and the kind of educational programs, projects, and services they need, taking into account the interest of all the members of the community. So, kailangan yung attention na kailangan na deserve ng educational program must be met. So that is the purpose of this act. So the fifth one is to enable the schools and learning centers to reflect the values of the community by allowing teachers and other staff the flexibility to serve the needs of all the learners. So talagang learners based itong act na ito. Whatever is the need of the learners should be satisfied and served. So, sinabi dyan ang word na flexibility. Dapat flexible tayo as we implement programs so that the needs of those learners must be met. To encourage local initiatives for the improvement of schools and learning centers and to provide the means by which these standards may be achieved and sustained. So dapat may mga local initiatives for the improvement of the school. So again, this is a collaboration. Itong mga initiative na to is a collaboration of the LGU, the PTA, and other stakeholders. And to establish schools and learning centers and other school facilities where school children are able to learn a range of core competencies prescribed for elementary and high school programs, or where the out-of-school youth and adult learners are provided the alternative learning programs and receive accreditation at least the equivalent of an elementary or high school education. So, as we establish the schools and learning centers, dapat makater niya lahat ng mga needs ng mga children, not only in-school children, but those children which are out of school youth, or hindi na sila children, no? Yung mga youth, no? That's why the alternative learning program or alternative learning system is being established and there is an accreditation. So nangyari na yan, di ba? So sa loob ng maraming taon, we implemented that one. So that's why the alternative learning system also plays a vital role in the attainment or implementation of quality education in our system kasi nakalagay siya sa batas na dapat i-cater din yung mga out-of-school youth. Whatever is the system of education we're implementing, huwag kalimutan yung mga nasa out-of-school youths and adult learners. Dapat provided din sila ng kind of education that they deserve, not only on the formal system. So, nasa batas siya ng RA 9155. So, hindi siya dapat iwan. Nobody should be left behind. Tingnan natin yung mga definition of terms na ginamit dito sa ating Republic Act 9155 because this will give us an idea anong ibig sabihin ng mga terminologies na ginamit nila. So although siguro yung ibang terms nito ay sa Republic Act 10533 or yung sa K-12 law, maaring the other definitions are enhanced, but this Republic Act 9155 is the origin of those other definitions. No? So, for the purposes of this act, the terms and phrases used shall mean or be understood as follows. Quality education is the appropriateness, relevance, and excellence of the education given to meet the needs and aspirations of an individual and society. Yung mga keywords niya, appropriateness, relevance, and excellence of the education. So, dapat talaga nandun yung lahat ng yan. Yung ating education should be appropriate, relevant, and it must be excellent. Basic education is the education intended to meet basic learning needs, which lays the foundation on which subsequent learning can be based. It encompasses early childhood, elementary, and high school education, as well as alternative learning systems for out-of-school youth and adult learners, and includes education for those with special needs. So, hindi lang yung nasa formal system na magsisimula tayo sa early childhood, sa kindergarten, sa elementary, sa high school. Yung high school ngayon, nadagdagan na nakategorize na siya ng junior high school, saka senior high school, as well as alternative learning system for out-of-school youth and adult learners at dinagdag pa yung education for those with special needs. Hindi natin ma-discount ang needs ng mga learners with special needs. So, hindi din siya pwedeng pabayaan. Dapat i-address din yung mga learners na may special needs. So, ang batas na ito ay nag-provide ng directions na dapat lahat ng klase ng learners, walang pinipili, dapat bigyan ng atensyon at masatisfy yung need. So, sa basic education, kasali lahat ng types of learners. Walang pinipili, maging sa formal at sa non-formal system of education. So, dapat silang lahat mabigyan ng pansin. Hindi pwede na nakapokus tayo sa isang sector o nakapokus tayo sa isang group of learners lang. Halimbawa, yung matatalino lang or yung mga skillful lang ng mga learners. So, dapat lahat ng klase ng learners must be given attention, including those with special needs. Early childhood, this is letter C. Early childhood refers to the level of education that intends to prepare 5 to 6 years old children for formal schooling and at the same time narrow down adjustment and learning gaps. This level focuses on the physical, social, moral, and intellectual development through socialization and communication processes. Take note, may nabago na rin dito. Kasi yung 5 to 6 years old, it is not anymore applicable in the present times. Kasi yung 6 years old is grade 1. Grade 1 na siya ngayon, di ba? Tapos yung 5 years old yun yung tinatawag nating early childhood na kindergarten. So, hindi siya 5 to 6, na-amend na yan ngayon, no? So, dapat yung kindergarten talaga ay 5, grade 1 is 6. Kasi yung grade 1 noon ay 7 years old. So, it is amended. And then, elementary education shall refer to the first stage of free, compulsory, formal education primarily focused with providing basic education and usually corresponding to 6 or 7 grades. Elementary education can likewise be attained through alternative learning system. So with the coming of Republic Act 10533 o yung K-12, wala nang 7th grade sa elementary. Yung elementary talaga ay from kindergarten, hindi siya elementary, from grade 1 to grade 6 lang. Wala nang grade 7. Kasi noong unang panahon, may grade 7 na elementary. So wala na yan ngayon. Elementary education can be attained also through alternative learning system. So mayroon din tayong equivalency, accreditation and equivalency examination A and E para sa mga elementary. Hindi lang tayo nakafocus din sa secondary. So lahat ng mga klase ng learners ay kailangan na satisfy at na-serve yung needs na sa batas po yan. Then secondary education shall refer to the stage of free formal education following the elementary level concerned primarily with continuing basic education, usually corresponding to 4 years of high school. Secondary education can likewise be attained through alternative learning system. So, dahil mayroon na tayong Republic Act 10533, yung secondary education is not anymore 4 years, no? Hindi na siya 4 years. Nahati na siya into junior high school, which is 4 years, and a senior high school, which is 2 years. So, yun yung kagandahan ng batas. Hindi naman niya kinontra itong secondary education na definition, but bagkus dinagdagan pa niya ang definition na ito. Kasi kailangan nga nag-evolve yung needs ng ating department. Ang approach natin kasi yung needs nagbabago. So 20 years ago, this might be true, but because of the passage of Republic Act 10533, so nabago na itong definition ng secondary education. Special needs education shall refer to the education of children and youth with special needs corresponding to elementary and secondary education that require modification of school practices, curricula, special services, and facilities. These include children and youth who are gifted, who are talented, fast learners, and those with disabilities. Diba, sa SPED program, mayroong mga fast learners, mayroon ding yung mga learners na kailangan may mga special needs sila. So, hindi lang yun para sa mga matatalino, para din sa mga may mga special needs. So, hindi lang nakafocus sa kanila ang atensyon. Formal education is the systematic and deliberate process of hierarchically structured and sequential learning corresponding to the general concept of elementary and secondary level of schooling, including education for those with special needs. At the end of each level, the learner needs a certification in order to enter or advance to the next grade level. So alam na alam natin yang formal education na yan. Kasi structured nga siya, di ba? So ngayon, sa formal education, from K to 12 na siya. So hindi katulad noon na hanggang junior high school lang, di ba? Hanggang 4th year high school, I mean. So ngayon, iba na yon. So na-change na ito. Then the non-formal education is any organized, systematic educational activity carried outside the framework of the formal system to provide selective types of learning to a segment of a population. So pwede itong mga alternative delivery mode na nakagisnan natin na maibigay sa mga learners yung quality education pa rin, pero in a non-formal way. Hindi sa loob ng isang formal system or sa classroom. Kasi depende sa kanilang situation. Information education is a lifelong process of learning by which every person acquires and accumulates knowledge, skill, attitudes, and insights from daily experience at home, at work, at play, and from the life itself. So it is called now as lifelong learning. So ito talaga ang advocacy ng Department of Education wherein there is lifelong process of learning by every person that he or she acquires from daily experiences, whether it is from home, from work, or play itself. And the alternative learning system is a parallel learning system to provide a viable alternative to the existing formal educational instruction. It encompasses both the non-formal and informal sources of knowledge and skills. Ito ay yung birth talaga ng alternative learning system dahil sa batas na ito. Sabi nga dito, yung alternative learning system is a parallel learning system. So, parang katabi talaga ito ng learning system ng formal. So, to the existing formal educational instruction. So, hand in hand sila, nagbibigay ng education sa lahat ng mga learners. Kaya importante talaga yung alternative learning system. And dito rin ang advocacy ng ating butihing secretary, si Secretary Leonor Magtoles Briones. So ito rin ang kanyang advocacy sa taas talaga kasi kailangan ma-reach out lahat ng mga nangangailangan. Then, letter K is about the definition of a teacher. The teacher refers to a person engaged in teaching in the elementary and secondary levels, whether on full-time or part-time basis, including industrial arts and vocational teachers, and all other persons performing supervisory, managerial, and or administrative functions in all schools and education offices at the district, division, regional, and central levels and qualified to practice teaching under Republic Act 7836 and or those performing functions in support of education such as standard setting, policy and programs formulation, research, and sector monitoring and evaluation. So ito yung isa sa mga misconception na pag na-promote ka na principal or higher, naging superintendent ka na, hindi ka na daw teacher. So by definition, teacher pa rin sila. Kasi nandun sila sa nag-support ng education like the policy making, the programs formulation, the monitoring and evaluation. So lahat ng yan na nanggaling pa rin sa word na teacher. So hindi ibig sabihin na principal ka na, hindi ka na teacher. By definition, you are still a teacher. So, kasi ang ano ng iba, yung teacher, yung nagtuturo lang. Hindi po. Lahat po na involved sa standard setting, policy and programs formulation, research and sector monitoring and evaluation. Lahat ng yan ay you are considered as teacher. May mga sectors lang or may mga positions na related teaching ang tawag sa kanila. Pero pag sinabi nating related teaching, halimbawa yung chief ng CID or chief ng SGOD, yung mga education program supervisors, they are called as nasa related teaching pa rin sila but still they are teacher. Learning facilitator, this term is being used in the existing alternative and equivalency program. For purposes of consistency, the proper reference there is a need to include the definition of a teacher in the formal system, since being a learning facilitator is only one of their roles. So anong sinabi niya? For purposes of consistency and proper reference, there's a need to include the definition of a teacher in a formal system. Kasi yung pagiging learning facilitator, isa lang yon sa mga roles niya. I hope naintindihan ninyo yun, no? And then, learner is any individual seeking basic literacy skills and functional life skills or support services for the improvement of the quality of his or her life. So lahat-lahat ng yan, mga learners, learner ang ano niya, category. Pag nag-seek siya ng learning sa lahat ng level kasi nangangailangan siya para sa improvement of quality of his or her life. So, learner ang tawag natin dyan. And then the adult learner, learners aged 25 years and above who are illiterate or neo-literate, who either have had no access to formal education and have reverted to illiteracy. So, dalawang words dyan, yung illiterate. So, ibig sabihin talagang adult na siya, 25 years old na siya, illiterate, maaring hindi pa siya nakapag-aral, so hindi siya marunong bumasa at sumulat at makaintindi sa kanyang, maaring nakabasa din siya pero hindi niya maintindihan. O yung neo-literates ay maaring nakapag-aral siya pero nag-drop out siya. Yun yung mga neo-literates. Kaya later on, hindi na niya maalala kung ano yung mga ano niya na pag-aralan. So, this resorted and reverted to illiteracy. So, yun yung ating mga adult learners. The out-of-school youth are school-aged children who are unable to avail of the educational opportunities of the formal school system or who have dropped out of the formal elementary or secondary education. So, yung mga school-aged children na hindi nila na-avail yung educational opportunities and nag-drop out sila sa formal elementary or secondary education. The school heads are persons responsible for the administrative and instructional supervision of school or cluster of schools. So, yung administrative and instructional, yun yung isa sa mga main responsibility ng isang school head. Non-teaching personnel refers to employees who are not actually involved in classroom teaching, but directly or indirectly, indispensably assisting in the delivery of services to educational constituencies and clientele, such as but not limited to administrative officers, accountant, personnel officers, supply officers, record officers, etc. Yung mga administrative assistant natin, administrative aid, sa lahat-lahat ng yan, administrative officers nandyan, ano? Kasi yung administrative officers, iba't ibang level. May administrative officer 2, administrative officer 4, may administrative officer 5. So, lahat ng yan, mga non-teaching personnel based on this definition. Operating officers refers to the Department of Education key officials in the central, region, and schools division offices, including school heads and administrators who are directly involved in the implementation, evaluation, and monitoring of plans, programs, and projects of the department. So lahat-lahat ng mga officials ay tinatawag nating operating officers. So, yan pala ang tawag sa mga officials of the Department of Education. The key officials sa Department of Education. Tinatawag nating operating officers. School is an educational institution, private and public, undertaking educational operation with a specific age group of pupils or students pursuing defined studies at defined levels, receiving instruction from teachers usually located in a building or a group of building in a particular physical or cyber site. So ito yung definition ng school. Educational institution, whether it is private and public. Yung mga private school, mga partner natin yan sa sa Department of Education. So, kailangan din natin silang alagaan, although marami silang challenges. Ngayon, at hindi natin na-meet ang kanilang mga needs, but kasi nasa pandemic tayo ngayon, no? So, yung mga public at private educational institution, tinatawag natin silang schools na we pursue at different levels of instruction and coming from teachers. And they are usually located in a building in a particular physical or cyber site. Kasi yung iba online, di ba? Cluster of schools. So dito nagsimula sa Republic Act 9155 yung pagtawag ng mga cluster of schools. So cluster of schools is a group of schools which are geographically contagious and brought together to improve the learning outcome. So yung cluster of schools, maraming benefits yan. Kasi halimbawa, kakaunti lang yung mga teachers natin at yung geographical location nyo malalapit lang. So parang mayroon kayong sharing of resources, marami yang mga benefits, no? At ginagamit din ito halimbawa yung cluster of schools kung kakaunti lang yung mga items natin, pwedeng may sa isang cluster of schools, may isang head teacher or may isang principal na magpupursi sa lahat ng mga instructional at administrative needs of that particular schools. As years go by, this cluster of schools is being implemented and usually headed by a cluster principal. So maaari yung iba mga TIC, yung tinatawag nilang mga annexes of schools, at mayroong isang principal na tatayo na talagang siya yung magbibigay ng administrative and instructional supervision among members of that cluster of schools. So maraming benefits yung cluster of schools talaga. So we must be very thankful of this Republic Act 9155. Integrated schools is a school that offers a complete basic education in one school site and has unified instructional programs and under one school head. Ito ngayon, marami tayong integrated school. Isang elementary or may kindergarten, from kindergarten, mayroong elementary, mayroong secondary education, and they are manned by one school head. So in every division, I think may mga integrated school tayo na nag-i-exist. Number 5 is the field. Letter V is field offices refers to the regional division, schools levels, and learning centers. So tinatawag sila field offices. School sports or any sporting activity which involve the students and the schools or teachers as part of the school curriculum, focusing on physical fitness and sports development programs such as training of school athletes, teacher coaches, and officiating officials, and are engaged in intramural and extramural activities from the inside and to the outside activities of a certain school. So talagang yung school sports, naka-embodied na yan noon pa sa Republic Act 9155. Kaya nga meron tayong mga sports activities coming from the school, district, division, mayroon pa tayong mga regional level, and then palarong pambansa. Yun yung pinakamataas natin. Pero ngayong pandemic, suspended lahat ng mga activities sa sports. But sports activity is also one of the vital program of the Department of Education. Itong principles of shared governance in section 1.5 is also very, very important in Republic Act 9155. The shared governance as a principle recognizes that every unit in the education bureaucracy has a particular role, task, and responsibility inherent in the office and of which it is principally accountable for outcomes. So, shared governance, kailangan talaga yan sa ating department. It is a principle na nag-recognize na lahat ng unit has a particular role, task, and responsibility. So, hindi lang monopolize ng isang unit sa department. So, lahat may role para shared yung ating mga tasks. Then, democratic consultation shall be observed in the decision-making process involving shared goals at appropriate levels, whenever and wherever appropriate and feasible, The students, as the object and subject of instruction, shall be consulted on matters that affect the welfare and instructional needs. Operations shall be responsibility of the operating officers concerned. Feedback mechanism shall be established to ensure coordination and open communication. Coordination po 'yan, no? So, yung ang role ng mga estudyante or mga learners ay importante. So, kailangan they must be consulted. Ang sinabi din dito, feedback mechanism should be established and operation shall be the responsibility of the operating officers concerned. So, kailangan talaga natin ang shared governance. Kaya nga, yung mga operating officers concerned, as defined kanina, ito yung mga key officials, kailangan very keen and observant on the needs of the learners. And they must be properly consulted. Sabi nga dyan, democratic consultation is observed in the decision-making process. Kaya nga, may mga mechanism tayong pinapatupad sa ating Department of Education in order to address this kind of scenario. The principle of accountability and transparency shall be operationalized in the performance of functions and responsibilities at all levels. Accountability and transparency. So, kailangan talaga transparent in all of the transactions in the Department of Education. And then you must be accountable of all the things that you have been doing, especially for the key officials and for the teachers. So, kailangan talaga accountable tayo sa lahat ng ating mga gagawin because we have that aura sa mga ating mga school heads. The communication channels of field offices shall strengthen the flow of information and expand linkages with other government agencies, local government units, and non-government organizations or NGOs for effective governance. So, ibig sabihin, ang channel of communication of all field offices should be strengthened and facilitate free flow of information and expand linkages. Kaya naman, kailangan talaga natin ang ating mga LGU and ating mga NGO. So do not discount the role of the NGOs and LGU. Importante sila sa ating Department of Education, lalong-lalo na sa life ng mga principals. Kasi sila yung nagbibigay sa atin ng mga ating mga pangangailangan. Kasi nga, it is a fact that Department of Education cannot do it alone. We need the support of everybody in the community because, after all, education is everybody's business and it takes a village to educate a child. Kailangan ma-realize yan ng mga principal na yung communication channel natin, dapat open tayo. Huwag natin sabihin na hindi ako makipag-ano sa mga politicians. No. That is a fact talaga na kailangan nating mag-navigate ng politics at yung mga non-government organizations as well. Dito tayo magfo-focus kasi before this school head, mayroon pa tayong secretary, regional officials, regional director, schools division superintendent. Dito tayo mag-focus sa role ng school heads. So sa 6.1, kasi ito naman ang focus natin. So this is the meat of the discussion of this Republic Act 9155, the school head. So the school head, or section 6.1, the school head, there shall be a school head for all public elementary schools and public high schools or a cluster thereof. The establishment of integrated schools from existing public elementary and public high schools shall be encouraged, subject to the guidelines that will be issued for the purpose by the Secretary of Education. So, mayroon na yan ngayon, napakarami ng mga integrated school. At ang yung school head, siya talaga ang magman sa isang school. The school head who may be assisted by assistant school head. Uso na yan ngayon, di ba? Marami ng mga assistant principal, maging sa senior high. Marami ng mga assistant principal. Shall be both an instructional leader and administrative manager. The school head shall form an instructional leader and administrative manager. The school head shall form a team with the school teachers, learning facilitators, for the delivery of quality educational programs, projects, and services. So yung school head, mag-form siya ng instructional leaders and administrative managers. Yung mga instructional leaders, kadalasan yung mga master teachers. In the event na wala kayong master teachers, pwede yung mga senior teachers or those who are trained to provide instructional supervision in a certain school, lalo-lalo na sa mga maliliit na school. But kung maliliit talaga na school, pwede na yung cluster schools na mayroong isang principal na mag-provide ng instructional supervision doon sa mga cluster of schools niya. Yan yung purpose ng cluster of schools kasi yung iba maliliit. Halimbawa, isang school, dalawa lang yun sila na teacher. Ano siya? Hindi siya kumpleto, no? Mayroong primary school lang siya. So, alangan naman na yung isa silang dalawa ay ano lang, dalawa lang sila sa paano yun mag-function yung instructional supervision. So there must be outside na magbigay sa kanila ng technical assistance. So pwede yung cluster of schools. So yung school head talaga mag-perform, nasa diskarte mo yan, how to perform that instructional and administrative functions. Dahil resourceful naman itong mga school heads natin, the school head should lead a team. So, kung nasa cluster of schools ka, magbuo ka ng team. So, kung nasa school ka, you have to form a team. Kung sino yung bibigyan mo ng functions na ganyan. Importante talaga na knowledgeable ang school heads about instructional supervisions and administrative supervision. Kasi kung hindi ka knowledgeable dyan, paano mo ma-implement? You cannot give what you don't have. Especially on the instructional supervision. And importante din yung administrative function ng school head. Kasi ikaw yung mapapalakad ng operations ng schools. Hindi pwede yung mga hindi marunong sa department na ito. Kailangan talaga aralin mo ng husto kasi naging school head ka, dapat more steps ahead ka sa iyong mga teachers. Baka naman yung mga teachers pa ang mas nakakaalam kaysa sa iyo. That is hindi magandang senaryo yan. So, kailangan na school head, you must be resourceful. So, this is the accountability or the authority, accountability, and responsibility of a school head. So, this is 6.2. So, dito talaga nagsimula yung aura. May pin pa ito noon na binibigay sa mga school head nung bago pa ang batas na ito. May nakasulat na aura. So, consistent with the law, national educational policies, plans, and standards, the school head shall have the authority, accountability, and responsibility for the following. Ito yung meat ng ating discussion sa 9155. Ito talaga ang pinapagawa sa inyo. Setting the mission, vision, goals, and objectives of the school. Pero again, ito ngayon, kasi noon, naalala ko noong unang panahon, napapanahonan ng mga 2000 kasi principal na ako noon. Bawat school, iba't iba yung vision, mission, goals, and objectives. Pero, pagdating ni Secretary Luistro, noong 2010, ay pagkaraan ng mga ilang buwan o taon, naging isa na lang yung vision, mission, and goals and objectives of the school. So, yung setting of the vision and mission of goals and objective of the school, inako na ito ng Department of Education. So, siguro ito, instead of setting, implementing na ito. The second one is creating an environment within the school that is conducive to teaching and learning. So, it is the responsibility of the school head na conducive to learning and teaching ang iyong paaralan. Pag hindi conducive, you must solve that problem. You must collaborate with your stakeholders para dapat yung iyong school ay conducive to teaching and learning. That is one of your major responsibility as a school head. The third one is implementing, monitoring, and assessing the school curriculum and being accountable for higher learning outcomes. So, ito yung importante na role ng school head, implementing, monitoring, and assessing the school curriculum. That is embodied in Republic Act 9155. Developing the school education program and school improvement plan. Nandito na yung school improvement plan. Noon pa ito, tinatawag nating SIP. It may be embodied na dyan yung mga AIP, PPMP, and so on. So, ikaw dapat school head ang magawa ng school improvement plan. Hindi mo pwedeng i-copy-paste ang SIP ng ibang paaralan. So, kailangan ikaw talaga ang magawa ng iyong school improvement plan bilang school head ng paaralan na yan. It is unfortunate kung hindi ka makagawa ng school improvement plan. You have no business being a school head. Sorry to say that one. The fifth one is offering educational programs, projects, and services which provide equitable opportunities for learners in the community. So, you offer educational programs, projects, and services which provide opportunities for learners in the community. So, dapat role mo yan bilang isang school head. Introducing new and innovative modes of instruction to achieve higher learning outcomes. So, take note of the keywords, new and innovative modes. So, kailangan kasi mag-contextualize ka dyan sa paaralan mo. Hindi lang yung ano yung binigay ng DepEd. Yun lang din ang ibibigay mo. Dapat may mga innovative modes of instruction ka. Kasi nga, yung education, dependent on the needs of the learners. So, kailangan you innovate, you discover the modes of instruction that is applicable to a certain community. The seventh one is administering and managing all personnel, physical and fiscal resources of the school. So that is your responsibility as a school head. Yung mga personnel, physical and fiscal resources. Crucial talaga ito kasi yung personnel mo, human resources, physical aspect ng school, at saka yung fiscal. Yung fiscal talaga kasi you must spend all your money or resources in the school judiciously. Kailangan magaling ang pagka-budget at magaling ang paggastos. Sulit ang gobyerno sa paggastos mo. Kailangan talaga yan sa isang paaralan. So, kaya nga, pinaprepare yung mga school heads ng AIP. Diba? Nandyan na yan yung mga fiscal resources at physical requirements of the school. And yung personnel action, i-manage mo lang. Kasi yung hiring naman, hindi mo naman function yan. Doon naman yan sa schools division superintendent. Pangwalo, recommending the staffing complement of the school based on its needs. Kaya nga, pupunta tayo sa ating schools division superintendent. Sasabihin natin, ma'am, kulang kami ng ganito, kulang kami ng teacher sa math, kulang kami ng teacher sa science, kulang kami ng teacher sa Filipino. Sino ba ang magsasabi niyan? Kundi ang school head mismo. Do you expect na ipadiscover mo pa yan sa mga outside forces ng iyong school, like the supervisors? So, dapat ikaw mismo una makakaalam niyan, yung mga staffing complement of the school. So, dapat ikaw mismo ang una nangunguna sa mga bagay-bagay na ganyan. Then, encouraging and enhancing staff development. So, dapat encourage mo yung mga staff mo na maging mapamaraan sila at mag-aral din para mag-grow din sila. Kasi isa yun sa mga legacy mo as a leader pag nakapag-produce ka ng maraming leaders. So that is one of your responsibility or aura as a school head. The next one is establishing school and community networks and encouraging the active participation of teacher organizations, non-academic personnel of public schools, and parents, teachers, community associations. So yan ang role mo as a school head. You establish networks and you encourage active participations of all the stakeholders. Kaya kailangan yung school head marunong talaga mag-linkage, marunong mag-navigate lahat ng mga stakeholders niya. Hindi ka pwedeng nakakulong ka lang doon sa iyong office o palagi kang maraming ginagawa, sabihin mo, wala akong time dyan, busy ako, hindi ako pwedeng makipaghalubilo sa kanila kasi marami akong ginagawa. No, you should spare time for that networks and linkaging. And then, the 11th one is accepting donations, gift, bequest, and grants in accordance with existing laws and policies of the department for the purpose of upgrading teachers, learning facilitators, competencies, improving and expanding school facilities, and providing instructional materials and equipment. Such donations or grant must be reported to the school's division superintendent. Nakalagay sa batas na pwede ka mag-accept ng mga donations. May collection policy, authority ka as a school head. Kung yung iba, no collection policy, yung school, no collection policy sa mga ating mga learners, ikaw, may collection policy ka, but on the donations, gifts, and other grants na para sa ikabubuti ng iyong paaralan. And that must be dealt sensitively. Kasi nagiging source yan ng abuse and corruption. So, kailangan it must be properly recorded and it must be reported to none other than the school's division superintendent of your division. Hindi ka pwedeng hindi mo i-report yan. Kailangan i-report mo yan kasi para yan sa kabutihan ng iyong paaralan such as the school facilities, the instructional materials and equipment. Diba maraming nagdo-donate? Yung mga non-government organizations, yung mga LGU natin mismo, lalo na ngayon sa pandemic, may mga nagdo-donate ng mga photocopying machines, may nagdo-donate ng reso machines, may nagdo-donate ng bond paper, may na nagdo-donate ng ink, napakaraming donations na ibinibigay sa ating schools. Dapat it should be properly recorded and reported. Tandaan yan. May power ka to accept donations but it must be dealt carefully and sensitively and must be reported andun sa ating schools division superintendent. Ito ang pinakamalaking function ng school head. Kasi sabi dito sa number 12, performing such other functions as may be assigned by the secretary, regional director, and schools division superintendents where they belong. Kaya nga, sa lahat ng mga designation, orders, and functions, ito yung panghuli na inilalagay. Kasi maaaring marami ka pang functions na gagampanan. Basta i-assign ka lang ng Secretary of the Department of Education or ng Regional Director or ng Schools Division Superintendent. Kaya hindi mo pwedeng sabihin, wala yan sa job description ko. Hindi ko gagawin yan as school principal, hindi ko trabaho yan. Oy, pwede kang i-assign other functions as may be assigned to you. Kaya, as a school principal, you must be open to any possibilities and any task that will be given to you. You must not be closed-minded, but you must be open to all possibilities. Kasi, tatanggap tayo ng order sa mga boss natin. We should not refuse. Kasi kasali yan sa batas, sa Republic Act 9155. Kaya naman, kailangan nating maintindihan ang lahat ng yan. So, maraming salamat sa inyo sa inyong panonood sa aking YouTube channel, the Hector Macalalag Leadership Channel. I hope that you learn a lot from this encounter as you brace yourselves to prepare for the principal's exam. So, ito yung video number 7 ko. I hope that I can still discuss Republic Act 10533 in the coming days. I hope that you learn a lot from this encounter as you prepare for the principal's exam. Thank you very much and God bless all of you.